About time, huh? It'll actually make this talk land that much better and quicker because we have we do have a bit of a time constraint this morning just because we're going to fit in a little town hall meeting, which will not be as long as the last one, but it will take some time. So I need you to hold this vision for this message this morning, that your minds and your hearts are open and you're already established in the truth of who you are, which of course is the truth anyway, but to consciously bring your awareness to that truth so that the words, which are really only just pointers to that reality that lives in you as you. Okay? Are we together on that? See, all of these teachings, they're really not necessary, except for one. Could we turn it up just a little bit? I think my voice is a little smaller today, but my message is huge. Let's match that. All of these words are just pointers to the truth. And I think even I, as a minister who has spent a lot of time doing this inner work, forget that, because I love words. Anyone love words? Yeah. That words are meaningful to you. They mean something to you, and perhaps they do close the gap, in a sense. The veil that comes down for us, which is that feeling that we are separate and an isolated person in the world, vulnerable, as opposed to knowing that we are chips off the old block. We are, the microcosm of the macrocosm. And the only separation that goes on where? In our minds. So when we sort of establish that as the truth, and we realize that, all the ways that we've been seeking joy and happiness in our life, or peace, which are all sort of interchangeable words for the same reality. And we realize that all of those efforts that we make every day to go out and make it a better day are really only substitutes for this inner work. You get me? Do you feel me? In other words, if we can make the connection to the truth of our being, then what's happening out here doesn't matter. Because what happens out here is just what's happening out here. And its effect upon us is determined by whether we are identified as a body, mind, or we are identified with the truth of our spiritual being, which doesn't rise and fall with circumstances, yes? So I'm cutting to the chase, folks, because I know you guys have been, Marguerite, you've been on this path a while. Yes? You've been with us many, many decades, been hearing these teachings. So maybe it's time for some of us, to stop seeking and start finding. Start landing into the knowing of the truth of what we truly are, and not just giving it lip service, because boy, that's something ministers do a lot of, don't we?
Yes.
Takes one to know one, yeah. Well, Denise and I have been doing this for a long time. We've been talking. And of late, our personal journey has been much quieter. We're spending more time in the silence. In other words, we're spending less time talking about it and more time knowing about it. Because what did Jesus say?
Be still and know.
He didn't say that, but that's a good one. Yeah, be still and know. We have that on our wall in our home. And we don't point to that when we're having an argument, because that doesn't work. So be still and know that I am right. But what Jesus said is, you shall know the truth and you'll be set free. He didn't say you shall talk about the truth until the cows come home. He said you shall know it. He also said things that belie the way that we tend to think about our joy and our happiness, which is it's some time in the future. It's an event. Something needs to happen. It's a relationship that needs to change. It's a certain level of financial security that we need to achieve. It's to be noticed. It's to be appreciated. It's to have an intimate, loving relationship. We have all of these conditions that we put upon what it will take for us to experience peace and joy and happiness. And all of those are basically building walls between us and the divine. Because any conditions, any list of what we want in our life as a condition for our happiness is really blasphemous.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. It's blasphemous if we know the truth, that we are made in the image and likeness of God, that the kingdom of God is within. Jesus was constantly trying to steer everyone away from this notion that the kingdom would come in the future. He said, it's spread upon the earth. It's here. It's now. You say 4 months and then comes the harvest. And I say the fields are already ripe right here and right now. And that's what you and I really come here to know. We don't come here to figure out how we can manifest a better outer life. Because if we do that, then all we're doing is we're giving more life to this false sense of self, that sense of separation that needs life to be a certain way for us to be okay. And we're tired of that, aren't we?
Yes.
Aren't we just tired of, if we get what we want and it's sort of like the separate self just kind of dies, the seeking mind just, relaxes for a moment. And we get what we want. And then there's the separate self rises up again. And then it's looking for a relationship or an object or some situation to be different. And then we get that thing, whatever that is. She loves me. And so now the seeking self settles down again. As long as we're playing that game, then it's an endless game of seeking but not finding the true satisfaction, the peace that we really, really, really want, that we were brought into this world to realize. And we were told for a long time as we were growing up that, you are a body and you have a mind and that you're separate from your brother and your sister. And now this work, the spiritual work we're doing, is to begin to dissolve that. Yes, that's true at the relative plane in which we have to live and we have to respect each other's stuff and possessions and boundaries. But when we're talking about our inner self, when we're talking about the truth of us, that part of us that was not born and will not die, that's always connected with God, with truth, with love, with peace. And it's only when you and I decide to take a different kind of a journey, instead of going out to try to get life to be a particular way, that we turn around, we begin to examine the truth of our own being, that quiet essence of us, that we find what we've really always been looking for. And then the journey comes to an end. And then it becomes an opportunity for you and I, having known that love as what we already are, then it becomes an opportunity to express it and to share it. I love what you said about that. 3 years ago, I had a near-death experience, as I shared with some of you before. And since that time, I don't want to waste any time, just sort of like treading water and trying to get this sort of superficial happiness. I want to get about my Father's business, which is really expressing this love and this peace and this joy that I'm finding in myself a little bit more every day, and then sharing it. My relationships are better. I'm reaching out to people more. I'm not as shy, because I don't know how much time I have left. Whenever I would do a memorial service, I would say, we're all going to have one of these. Your day's coming too. And I would say usually something like this. If you knew that you only had, say, 2 weeks to live, who would you call? What would you say? And what are you waiting for? This is it. This moment. It doesn't get any better than this. You can't be any more godlike. You can't become any more spiritual. That better day is the day you wake up to that. That's the second coming of the Christ. There's a Hindu expression that I like. Satchit. I'm saying chit, C-H-I-T. Sat means existence or being. Chit, C-H-I-T, means consciousness or awareness. Ananda means happiness or joy. When those things are come together in your awareness, there's no more seeking. Sat Chit Ananda means the awareness of my being is happiness. The awareness of who and what I truly am is happiness. That's it. That's it. And it doesn't say when I have the awareness of my true being that I'll be happy, because this is what has confounded so many of us for so long who have been on this path, that we still believe that spiritual awakening is an event that will take place in time. And we keep thinking, maybe if I just meditate a little bit more, if I sit right, if I have the right music going, if I do the right mantra, we try to keep perfecting our spiritual practice as if there is something that we could finally do that we would then break through to some other level of consciousness from the one that we walk around with most of the time. And that is what defeats us and extends this journey, which could be over in an instant. Time. We need time. Like some of you are already looking at your watch. When's this going to be over? When do we eat? And we need that in this relative world for practical purposes. But time is an illusion in the spiritual realm. And it's an obstacle to our spiritual breakthroughs. What we do is we do this thing called nexting. There's texting, but we do nexting. What's next? What's next? And so there's an assumption that there is some moment in the future that will give us this experience of oneness, of the peace and the joy that we're looking for in life. We think that's going to be event in time, and we've been conditioned to believe that. Because since you've been a little boy or a little girl, you've been told, just there's this progression. You grow up and you get a little bit stronger and a little bit smarter, and then you have more privileges and you have more freedom and more responsibilities and more accomplishments and more possessions. And there's just this sort of linear thing that's been laid out for us, and then we err when we apply that to our spiritual life. Because then we think, oh, well, I've been meditating for 10 years, and maybe if it's after 15 years, when is it going to be enough? Some of us are getting really ticked off, frustrated, annoyed by the constancy and the diligence with which we have brought to this program, and yet we're not getting any fruits. Where's the fruits of the Spirit? Where is it? When will it come? Like there's a Zen story of a Zen student who goes to his master and says, I've been diligently meditating for 10 years, and I am so fervently wanting to wake up. How long will it take? And the master says, tell me again what you've done. Well, I've been meditating for 10 years. How much longer? He says, You're really, really trying hard? Yeah, really trying hard. I really want this. It'll be 20 years for you. There's an inverse relationship to the effort that we put into seeking and the success that we have in waking up. This is where the mind goes, what? It goes on tilt. It's like, no, that can't be true. The harder you work, the more you get. But here's the flaw, or the fly in the ointment, is that when you're pushing really hard for this reality to finally be in your life, you are saying, it ain't here now. You are basically chasing it away. It's like those little motes that you see flying through the air and you try to grab one. As soon as you do that, the air of your effort throws them away. Same thing with our recognition of who and what we are. Any thought that we have that this truth, this Christ, this spiritual awakening is something other than here and now is one more delay game that the separate self plays. And the only way that we get that separate self to calm down is by saying, what if there was no future? And you can play this with me just for a moment here. Close your eyes for a moment. Just imagine in your mind, I know you don't believe it, but it doesn't matter. Just imagine there is no next. There is no future. Just hold that. No future. No future. This is it, right here. Now, is it possible to be unhappy when there is no future? Okay, you can open your eyes. The only way that you and I are ever going to be, quote, happy is now. And that now is not just now in the linear sense, but it's the recognition of what's here right now. Before we get lost into the content of our experiences, before we get lost in our roles, the money we have, all the ways that we play in the world, those are all things we assumed, but we are spiritual beings. You take away all those roles, just identity-wise anyway, and what's left is a sense of pure being. Just, I am. Jesus said, before Abraham was, I am. Was he talking about a body or an essence? An essence. It's the essence of you and I that is the touchstone for our peace and our happiness. It's always been. All this struggling to learn, striving to be a better student of truth, if it's worn us down to the point where we finally surrender, then yeah, it's all been worthwhile. And who knows how long we have to continue to run in the wrong direction like the prodigal before we finally turn around and we come home to the I am that we are, to the self that God created. It needs nothing. It's whole, complete, and a very happy camper right now. Let's close our eyes for a moment and take this inward. So we just give profound thanks for these teachings that bring us home. And many of us are tired. Many of us have been on this journey for a long time, seeking and grasping after some notion of a better day, of some transcendent peace. So loving presence, we are grateful for your ever present, that you are ever present in our life as us, and that your presence is what we have been looking for. May we have the eyes and the ears to hear these teachings that point us here, that bring us home. Allow us to not be fooled by the promises of some better day in the world, for that will only delay our realization of what is here now. And we will play in the world, but we will not be fooled. You have given us all that we need in our creation, made in the very image and likeness of peace and joy and wholeness and well-being. You've done all for us that you could ever do for us. Your work in us is done. And our work is simply to recognize and realize what we are. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.